Good day, everyone, and welcome to another live at the waterhole session today on this fine Sunday. It's myself, Kenneth Gamble. I'll be your guide for the session. It's good to be back after a few weeks of my absence. We're starting off here in Botswana at the Camelthorn Farmstead. 3 beautiful elephant bulls quenching their thirst. It was obviously quite dry. We are in the midst of the dry season. And on top of that, in the midst of a El Nino weather system this year. So certainly a bit of a tough season ahead, but at least we can enjoy these beautiful elephants for now. Also, just a reminder, the show is live and interactive, so please feel free to pop through your questions and comments. Always adds a wonderful dynamic to the show. It's always quite interesting. These Botswana elephants that generally have quite shorter ivory, throws one off a bit when it comes to identifying their age, but I would say these bulls are still quite young specimens, probably in their 20s or so. Can hear the wonderful audio of the zebras in the background. Certainly haven't seen them for a while. I'm sure they're gathering in great numbers at the moment. I must say these elephants seem quite peaceful. They don't seem very keen to have a swim. The water might be a bit chilly, even though the air temperature is relatively warm. I can imagine the water is still quite frigid this time of year. Morning temperatures throughout southern Africa get deceptively low. Like a strand, I hope I said that right. Thanks, it's wonderful to be around. Yeah, it is certainly interesting the effect El Nino is having. I've read a few reports on the effect it's had on the northern hemisphere already. Obviously, we haven't really felt the brunt of it yet. In southern Africa or South Africa, it's been noted that our winter temperatures have already been quite above the previous years. All the minimums and the maximums were quite a bit higher for winter. Although this past week, wide parts of South Africa received quite a bit of snow, so it is certainly interesting. But the real test will come once we enter into our summer season, or the wet season. I predict, considering we had quite a bit of floods earlier this year throughout the country, we might not feel the drought or the lack of rain or reduced rainfall as potently this season. but I certainly do think heat waves will be quite well felt. So that'll be a bit of a change for us. It's quite funny, while I was speaking I saw that elephant grabbing the other one's tail, but certainly some wonderful sights and sounds here. I also enjoyed hearing the hippo vocalization. It's probably one of my fondest memories growing up is camping and hearing hippos at night. It's such a peaceful sound, although the owner of that voice is not necessarily a too friendly an animal. They can be quite dangerous, as we know. It appears as if there's maybe a small standoff going on here between these elephant bulls and the hippos. I saw a bit of a head shake there. Can only think that is probably directed at the hippos, but also just trying to show off and show that ego. I don't think there's anything really meant by it. Ah, there we go. There's a few of our hippos. A bit more to the left than I thought, but it's nice to see how full the Buteti is still here. Camelthorn is the Buteti, if I'm not mistaken. You can see that one hippo swimming a bit closer. I don't know if he wants to make his presence known to the elephants. Carl, you'd like to know if will the El Nino outdo all the rain we have had in the past year? I don't think necessarily at the moment, no. Once again, yeah, I'm not a meteorologist or expert in weather. I do work in agriculture and I've seen a few things over the years in my career. But if I just had to draw a comparison to what I've seen in the Kruger Park this year and other areas, a lot of the dams and pans are still very full of water, which is not normal in normal years or average years. So I do think there is currently enough water still lying around. Parts of the Kruger Park are still waterlogged or marshy and muddy, also quite green. So I do think that's enough to carry everything into the new season. Of course, it just depends on the level of these heat waves that can expedite a lot of the heat stresses or drying out. But even then, that said, I still think there really is a lot of water, so I do think it would get through that. The trick starts to come in is how long this El Nino is going to last, and that seems to be the interesting topic everyone is discussing. Some are referring to it as a Godzilla El Nino, saying it will be quite intense and it will last a few years, about I think roughly 8 or so, but yeah, that's up for debate. There's no indication how long it may or may not last, but I certainly think after the first season, probably this time next year, it'll be quite a different picture. Yeah, it's interesting. I thought about it the other day when I was a fair bit younger. You don't really notice the weather or these weather events. You kind of just go on with them and watch them come past. But it'll be interesting to see how this one shapes out. But if I had to draw one reference point, there's a dam in the Kruger Park near Satara and normally there's an island kind of in the middle of it that sticks out most of the year, and especially into the dry season. And I was there about a week ago, and the island is still completely submerged. So obviously it gives you an idea that water levels are still quite high. So bit of a buffer for now, but it won't last forever. It's kind of funny, it looks like these three young elephant bulls are having a bit of a meeting, all three of them facing forward at each other. Certainly a bit of roughhousing taking place, but we're certainly taking it easy on the Sunday, just having a peaceful day next to the waterside. It's obviously also getting still just past 11, so it's going to get hotter, so I doubt they will really move off to feed. They'll probably find some shade or muck around here at the water's edge a bit longer, but they probably don't have much planned for the next couple of hours. Trixie, you've got a great question asking what do I enjoy about wildlife viewing in both the rainy and the dry seasons. And I'm sure, I'm sure there's plenty of viewers that could also give their thoughts. For me, I love the wet season for all the bird migrants that come through, and just it's really a time of plenty. There's water everywhere, it's green, the vegetation is flourishing and flushing. But yeah, certainly the wet season is a really great time of year for birding. I find it quite exciting. You never know what other or what rare migratory bird you might come across in a pan of water or in a thicket. So yeah, birding is definitely great in the wet season. Quite exciting if you're if you are a obsessed bird watcher, I guess. I think what I enjoy in winter the most is it kind of gives that typical safari feeling. The bush maybe isn't so thick. The leaves are quite that pretty colour of yellows and reds and oranges, and it's going bare, and we've got those. A winter bush sunset is quite synonymous with the whole safari theme, I think. Of course, your game viewing is also quite easier in winter. The water's quite reduced, so you can almost reliably stake out water holes or water sources for animals to come down. So you tend to see quite a bit more in winter, ironically, all the dry season compared to summer. I think it does have to do with visibility. The bush thins out a bit and everything's just a bit more concentrated. I do think if you're a fanatic of big cats, etc., it's probably the best time of year to really see them. Visibility is better, and also, yeah, it's a good time of year for them. Obviously, some of the herbivores are also taking a bit of strain in the dry season, so it's almost a time of plenty for the predators. So quite a bit of action going on. But yeah, I must say it's two very different sides of the coin, and I think if you learn to enjoy both sides, then there's always excitement as the one season changes to the next. It's quite enjoyable. It's quite funny, these elephants don't seem to be too concerned about drinking. I don't think they are dying of thirst. Of course, they've got quite a bit of water at their disposal, and they probably did drink a bit before we started the show. But it's quite funny watching them just mingle like a bunch of, I guess maybe kids or toddlers just playing with their food. In this case, just playing with their water. So Myron, you'd like to know if there are threats of a drought coming up, do reserves do anything to combat that, like creating more artificial waterholes? So reserves can definitely prepare for drought, and in some situations they can include providing or maintaining artificial waterholes, but one doesn't necessarily want to put water everywhere. Water availability changes animal movement quite a bit. So if you start suddenly providing lots of permanent water, animals that would normally move across a large area during the dry season start to become concentrated, and around those water points it starts to lead to overgrazing, vegetation degradation, erosion, and even increased competition. So not only bad for the vegetation, but also actually counterintuitive to the animals you're trying to help. So I would say, a good manager kind of would look at the whole system, looking at things of how much natural water is available, how severe the drought is expected to be, which species are most vulnerable. Obviously each reserve is quite different, and what species are they protecting, etc., and how much forage or vegetation is available. So they might supplement water in strategic locations, or just deepen and maintain existing natural water sources, because obviously that's already a part of the habitat. It's nothing that's being altered. And then in some cases also moving animals in very intensely managed reserves. So for example, here where I live, a lot of the smaller wildlife lifestyle estates are managing their wildlife populations and decreasing numbers for the upcoming drought, because it's going to have an effect. And it's quite interesting if you look at Kruger, which has been around they celebrated their 100th year this year. So they've been doing research for many years, and they've gone in the opposite direction by closing artificial waterholes, because their research was showing that too much artificial watering points was altering animal distribution and putting pressure on a lot of vegetation. So their policy is that artificial water should only really supplement natural resources rather than overriding drought cycles. So yeah, it is quite harsh, but it's part of the system. In these drought times, it obviously reduces the animal population, which is just how the system works, and brings balance back a bit. And it also gives certain vegetation types or certain habitats a chance to recover, because animals can't spend so much time that they can move through, feed a bit, but they must carry on moving to the next water source or back to a water source. Whereas in wet seasons, animals spend a lot of time in those areas because they've got water and a lot of feeding. And that's generally what goes wrong once you supply too many artificial water holes. You have animals spending time in an area that they're not naturally, they wouldn't have spent such a prolonged amount of time, and it's that pressure that starts to cause quite a bit of ecological damage. So yeah, it's quite a complex topic, very sensitive in the impact, and one has to carefully think about what one is doing. Simply just supplying water is not the answer. You might be helping for a bit longer, but eventually you can have lots of water available, but you're still going to have starving animals. So one has to also balance that. Anyway, I'm going to leave our 3 young elephant bulls, and we're going to head over to Tau for a bit. See that elephant decided to give us a parting gift there. A very wonderful sight here at Tau that's welcoming us. Got lots of ducks swimming around. They look like white-faced whistling ducks to me. Very pretty ducks. I think they're probably one of my favorites, and they've got such a I'd say melodic or pretty call, very fitting of their name, but it's also quite a nice sound to hear if you're out in the bush. And we've got a few waterbuck, or 2 waterbuck. I'm sure there's a few more out of view, but this one's at least living up to its name for once. Just got to keep an eye out for the crocodiles, and quite a few zebras moving about the plains. So this is quite a good example of, if you look at this picture in Tau, you can see there's still quite a bit of vegetation available for this time of year. So these animals should be fine until the rains do arrive. It still is probably a good 3-4 months before the rains start, but the habitats are in a good condition at the moment. There we go. There's a nice close-up of our ducks. They just decided to chase each other around a little bit, but they are gorgeous little creatures. I would say these ducks are having a wonderful time, enjoying their swimming and foraging. Quite funny watching them dive down and come back up like that. Probably find they're feeding on the vegetative part, of the water lilies. While we have our waterbuck just enjoying some nice fresh grass. It's always a benefit if you are either an elephant or a waterbuck here in town. You can swim out to this grass that grows the entire year. So, almost like a never-ending salad bar. There's quite a few more waterbuck and some more waterfowl. Those look different. I imagine those are red-billed teals. There's a jacana and some red-knobbed coots. So it really is a good spread of different water birds. I am quite a sucker for water birding. I enjoy it quite a lot. The birds are always kind of in the open, so they do let you see them, and there's always a bit of action going on, which is quite nice. We don't necessarily have the biggest duck diversity compared to some other parts of the world, but we do have a few species spread out through the country. It's always amazing for me though how much ducks travel between different water bodies and how they're able to detect just when, within a few hours, a pan that was maybe once dry and it fills up with rain, within a few hours you can sometimes have ducks appearing there. It's just mind-boggling that they're able to detect or aware of those things. But I think a lot of us know animals are generally a bit more in tune with the environment than we realise. Also have a black crake walking around there. Plenty of bird action today. Tao is definitely spoiling us.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
Explorers get exclusive extras like extended safaris, private live drives, fireside chats, and the Jackie's Waterhole Cam. Your membership also unlocks early access to travel opportunities, competitions, merchandise, and prizes. So sign up today and you could even win a luxury safari travel prize. Not bad, right?
I think basically he wants the hyena away from him.
This is unusual habitat for cheetah to hunt in. We go, some more elephants are coming. It's an elephant party.
We know that adverts pay our bills, but you don't necessarily like them. So, this is a fantastic way to stop being interrupted. Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. 24/7, ad-free, live and on demand. No pesky commercials, no rude interruptions, just wild Africa exactly as it unfolds. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
Partake a bit, but it didn't really grab my attention until I was in my 20s. So yeah, I think it's I think at the end of the day some people will get into it, some maybe not. I also see the same with my little daughter. She's still very young, still a toddler, but also starting to notice birds and hearing them. And I think it's just about that positive reinforcement, just to enjoy nature and take notice of it. Later in life you can get very technical and worry about the names and all the technical aspects. I think often I'm probably a bit too technical, but I guess that's my passion. Also, just I think another easy way to get children into birding is probably putting up a little bird feeder in your garden and a bird bath, and that's a great start to see what will come visit. And it's also quite an easy way to start observing birds. Birds in suburban areas tend to be a bit more tame or less scared of people, so you really do kind of get to observe them a bit more. I remember as a child that was actually what excited me quite a bit, was seeing what birds would come to the bird feeder. It brought me great joy. So that's also another easy way to do it. There we have a whistling duck doing exactly what they normally do. You generally catch them just standing to the side of the water source. I don't know why he's standing all on its lonesome when all its friends are flopping about and feeding, but maybe it's decided they just want to take it a bit easy. Its social batteries may be a bit drained. But yeah, they are quite interesting ducks. They'll move in flocks, and then also very often you'll also see them singly. But It's not normal to see them on their own. Normally 2 to 5 ducks. It's not huge flocks that they move around in. But at the peak of the wet season, you really will see a copious amount of them. Nice to see all the wildebeest and zebras. I think there's even an impala at the back there. I can't see too well. Looks like an impala. Anyway, we'll probably maybe come back here a bit later, but we're going to head over to Safari Hook for a bit to see what's going on there. And that is very cool. I nearly missed it for a second. Springbok taking the limelight, but just behind the springbok we have a secretary bird with its back to us. Hopefully the springbok move a little bit so we can see. That was quite interesting. I don't know if that springbok was actually chasing it or accidentally got a bit of a fright while approaching it. But we did see a secretary bird shortly. We've also got a few, I think it's oryx at the back there. Although it looks also like eland, it's just a bit of a challenge with distortion. I do think those are eland. They look quite large, and the coloration for me looks like eland. Also quite a nice specimen of a blue wildebeest bull that's come through here. It's certainly quite dry here at Safari Hook and Etosha. Of course it is quite an arid area. And there we have a oryx that's come in, quite a young animal. I'd like to think it's probably not on its own. But you never know, strange things do happen in the bush. Seems like there's quite a strong wind blowing here at Etosha today. We have had some potent weather systems moving through southern Africa at the moment, which is also quite normal for August. It's known as the windy month, not for nothing. But yeah, I think here in Hoedspruit we had about 3-4 days of solid strong wind. Not pleasant. And I imagine this weather system has probably moved a bit more west or northwest up into Etosha, or there's something coming down. That's also actually probably more of a likelihood, something moving down the coast from further north. interesting to see how the wind is making animals a little jumpy, but of course it does distort their senses quite a bit. It does affect their ability to pick up scent from a certain or the other direction, and also their hearing is a bit impaired. It's actually quite ironic. A lot of people think in bad weather your game viewing will be worse. Surprisingly, it can actually be quite easier to see the cats because they make use of the poorer conditions to stalk, etc. So sometimes you just have to be brave and go out into the bad weather when your guide tells you it's worth it. It generally is. Animal lover, you'd like to know if waterbuck and buffalo do well in Namibia, considering they require a lot of water. They do, but once again, like you're spot on by saying they require a lot of water, in turn also a fair amount of grazing. So the right parts of Namibia is the key point, and this would also go for a lot of parts of western South Africa, even a bit of Taal or Madikwe, which is essentially actually part of the Kalahari habitat biome. But yeah, waterbuck are quite a good example of an animal distribution is quite largely dictated by water. They've got quite high water requirements. You can see it in their dung, but they only rarely naturally occur in Namibia around the Zambezi region and in some of the northern river systems. I know we do occasionally see them in other spots we wouldn't necessarily see them. As far as I know, I don't think there is an Etosha. I must double check myself. I haven't been there a lot. I just don't know why something in my head is saying I've seen at a private reserve there. But once again, that probably would have had a bit of introduction, or as an artificial waterhole supporting that type of or that population, etc. I think I've wondered that naturally in the Etosha system around there, I don't think you would reasonably expect to see waterbuck. But yeah, I think on a private property with enough water, they would be okay. But yeah, that is the deciding factor. I think once the water dries up, it's game over. And then of course your buffalo are very similar. They really need reliable access to water, so your naturally occurring populations in Namibia are again concentrated around the Kavango and Zambezi regions in the north of Namibia, or parts of the Caprivi Strip as it's known. And much of the rest of Namibia just really doesn't provide the permanent water buffalo need. And on top of that, the grazing. Buffalo really do need a lot of grazing, which goes hand in hand with those water requirements. But that being said, there are private landowners that do have herds of buffalo or waterbuck in arid areas, but of course on those private farms there's quite a bit of water being supplied, and in the drier times there's also supplemental feeding taking place to support them. Got a few guinea fowl that have come in for a drink. You can really see the wind, and the wind is really kicking up the dust and sand around here. And even the water surface is evident of the strong winds blowing through. I picked up my Etosha guide, so they Waterbuck are absent from Etosha itself. There is a few reported sightings from the fringes near private reserves where they've either escaped or been artificially introduced. So we were on the money there. I think that's also a big thing once one starts to understand their habitats. Understand their habitats better, you know what animals and birds to naturally or to expect. Anyway, we're gonna head over to Serendela and see what's waiting for us there. We have a nice elephant bum there. Now we have the rest of the elephant. There's a breeding herd that's actually leaving now. I imagine this is a young bull on the fringe there. Looks like a young bull. Sorry guys, we've just quickly come over to Fig Tree. These wildebeest are crossing here in the Mara. Very exciting to see. I always admire the wildebeest's bravery to swim across these rivers, or these crocodile infested rivers, and also the strong currents, etc. But yeah, let's enjoy this moment a bit. This really is such a amazing or magnificent scene to witness. It's really cool that Africam has gone to so much effort to put up all these different cameras throughout Africa that we can witness scenes like this. It's quite interesting how the wildebeest have drifted further and further downriver. The initial crossing point seemed a bit better to me. I saw quite a big crocodile moving into the herd there. I can't pick up if there is a wildebeest that's been grabbed, or that crocodile got trampled a bit. Obviously all those moving hooves etc. are dangerous, but yeah, truly magnificent. It seems to be the majority of this section of the crossing. My heart did skip a little bit of a beat when I saw that crocodile moving in, but there we go. I think that last one there got grabbed by a crocodile. They've taken it under, unfortunately. Well, I say unfortunately, I think it is just a tough thing to witness, but it is the way of nature. You can see this poor wildebeest is quite exhausted trying to get up off the rocks. I'm sure you'll find a bit of purchase there, maybe by the grass, but obviously very slippery when you've got hooves. Jace, I do agree with you. These sheer rock sides are quite challenging for them, and also how exhausted they are after crossing doesn't make it very easy for them. So, shame this poor young animals are probably struggling a little bit. Probably just needs to recuperate its strength a little bit. I think if it goes a bit to the right, it should be okay. But yeah, shame, not easy. There we go. Come on, buddy. Lesson on not giving up. But wow, that was really a cool sighting to behold, and something to witness. Would love to see it with my own eyes one day in the future, but that's not a bad substitute. At least we can all say that was live. But yeah, very cool. But we're gonna head back to Camelthorn now. It sounds like the elephants are having a bit of a dip. Oh, these elephants are really making the most of their Sunday. And evidently the water's not maybe as cold as I thought it was. It's probably too cold for me, but I'm sure it's quite pleasant for the elephants. But they are really making the most of their Sunday and keeping cool during the hot hours at the moment before they probably head out for some feeding later this afternoon. But we could see with these younger bulls, they're also quite boisterous and playful with each other. So I'm sure this is quite stimulating and entertaining for them. A bit of wrestling in the water. And Roz, you were mentioning your heart is always in your mouth watching these crossings. It is certainly quite exciting. Yeah, it's just amazing to see all those animals just persevering so hard to try and get across the water. And it seems like such a simple obstacle, but yeah, you can also see that river's got quite a bit of current in it, so I think quite a frightening thing to jump into. Myron, you'd like to know, is swimming something that comes instinctively to elephants? Yeah, it does appear to be largely instinctive in elephants. I would almost make the broader blanket statement that swimming is quite instinctive in most animals, I think especially mammals. It's probably just us humans that tend to sink in deeper water. But antelope, not that it's normal for them, but yeah, every time we see antelope or lions, I've never really seen a leopard in water, but they're all capable of treading water and swimming, so it does seem to be quite instinctive. It's maybe just, even baboons and monkeys, they can also swim. So I think it's just us humans that have maybe lost touch with that instinct. Although they do say babies have the instinct from a young age. So yeah, interesting topic anyway. But yeah, your young elephant calves have the natural ability to paddle and keep themselves afloat. They're quite buoyant, but they will need a bit of practice and protection from the adults so that they don't sink. But yeah, elephants are quite good swimmers. I've seen it a couple of times in Botswana's Chobe National Park, where they cross the rivers there, also in the Zambezi. They kind of paddle with all four legs, and I do think their body is also fairly buoyant. And of course in deep water they've got the added adaptation or usage, maybe let's say added benefit of their trunks being like snorkels, so it also makes it a fair bit easier for them. But yeah, I think what is quite interesting is elephants, and I think also the other animals, they don't formally really need to be taught how to swim. Obviously they do learn and get better at it with experience, but it is quite interesting how just by following adults they are able to do it. Kinsey, who's 13, you'd like to know if would a giraffe be able to move through the water like this? So giraffes can certainly wade through water. I've also seen it a few times, generally in shallow rivers. I'm talking about, I think even half a meter is probably a bit much, but let's say around half a meter. But yeah, if we're talking about deep water that like these elephants are actually swimming in, I mean obviously they're not swimming to tread water, but we can tell it's quite deep. These guys are now standing and they are up to their shoulders almost. So yeah, giraffes aren't known to be strong or comfortable swimmers. I think that makes sense, and that's probably also an exception of an animal that can really swim. I think their long legs and their long neck make swimming quite awkward, and their body just isn't really particularly well suited to moving through deep water. If we see how giraffes move on land, while they do appear graceful, if one looks at how, if a lion, for example, manages to cause a giraffe to fall over, that's generally game over for them. They're not very good at getting up, or if they're off balance, it's kind of a bit of a death sentence for them. So I do think they can potentially swim if they really need to, if it's an emergency for them. But I do think they'd be a bit vulnerable in deep water compared to an elephant. I think in a survival situation they'll probably get through it, but I do think they would rather avoid it. It seems like there's 3 older elephant bulls that have joined this party. You can just kind of see that size to them. Also thicker ivory, not necessarily long tusks, but that ivory is quite a bit thicker and more developed. But definitely much larger bulls. I would say they're more in their 30s, round about that region. They've got a bit more experience than the younger fellows playing in the water. And it's like we've said on previous shows also, you don't often or necessarily see the larger or the older bulls really going to swim and splash around. I guess it's one of those things, as you get older, you either don't want to play around, or it's maybe the old body doesn't do so well playing around. Seems like the next meeting is taking place. Younger bulls are greeting and smelling. It's very interesting how elephants interact. I think there's a lot we don't understand yet, but there's lots of research as they've shown over the years that are quite socially complex animals. Rhino Ron, you'd like to know if it looked like that matriarch was calling them to stop swimming. So I don't really think we can say that bull was actually calling them out of the water. Just bearing in mind, this is a bull rather than a matriarch. All of those are male elephants. So we wouldn't automatically assign any leadership to him in this situation. What may have happened is the younger elephants simply decided to move towards him because they probably recognize him and were curious or wanted to just interact. Elephants are highly social animals, and individuals will often approach one another for contact and social interaction, which is what we saw there. We saw the trunk greetings, the trunk and mouth and smelling. So yeah, we can certainly observe the swimming stopped as they moved towards the bull, but whether it actually whether it actually stopped because they wanted to interact, that's a whole different question. But I don't think necessarily there would be in a way a command from the bull to say, listen, stop swimming and come over here. I think they're kind of all autonomously doing their own thing, but they will come over of their own accord to probably come interact. I think it's probably a good example of one of those moments where we can quite easily describe what happened, but yeah, we shouldn't necessarily pretend to know exactly what's going on inside their heads. We can only theorize, and those are my thoughts anyway. But I do think that larger bull does certainly command a lot of respect. They wouldn't necessarily roughhouse or be aggressive towards him, that's for sure. Oh, those other two bulls have disappeared to now. There they are, just out of frame. But they're moving quite a bit in the water. Almost looks like they're doing laps in a swimming pool. Oh, Rose mentioning you still can't believe we watched the crossing. I do agree. Hats off to the zoomies and mission control for being on the action on the trigger there. That was very well timed, and I'm glad we got there in time to see it starting and finishing. That was incredibly cool. I think that is hands down the closest you can get to seeing seeing that action raw and live without physically being there in person. It certainly was very cool. And once again, I think just another brag for Africam for all the cool work they are doing in a lot of locations. A couple of years ago, things like this would have probably sounded like science fiction, and we are truly spoiled to be able to witness live nature like this throughout the continent. These elephants are certainly all over the show. One moment in view and then they disappear quite quickly. It's quite funny watching them really enjoy their swim. But yeah, I think a lot of us can relate. In our younger years as children, we probably all swam for hours on end like that. And nowadays I think it's quite rare for me to really get in the swimming pool unless it's quite hot, and then it's generally for a few minutes at most. I think I would, given the chance, 90% of the time pick a nice cold outdoor shower if I want to cool down in summer. And one thing I also just noticed since the elephants have been swimming, the hippos have also, I think, moved over a bit. I think there's quite a bit of chaos, and they don't want to go toe to toe with the elephants in the water. So I'm sure they've probably moved to a bit of a quieter section of the river for now. But yeah, very entertaining. energy levels of these elephants is truly remarkable. Just when you think they may be done swimming or fooling around and roughhousing, they get going with the next round. But yeah, that's also how they learn how to wield their strength and roughhouse when it really counts one day. Make the most of it while it's still friendly sparring. Well, we're going to leave our swimming pachyderms for a bit and head over to the Serengeti, see what's going on there. The entertainers of the bush. We've got the baboons slinking off, and I'm very sure there are a few more hanging around. See a hairy arm on the left there. Seems like they are just making the most of the shade. They've probably had a drink of water and they're going to take it easy, interact with a bit of social grooming, and wait out the hot hours of the African bush. Certainly a pleasant way to spend your Sunday. I would not mind following suit of the baboons' ideas, finding a nice shady tree to sit underneath, just watching the day go by.
Would you like to know what an elephant's favorite food is? You could ask me questions like that in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive from the heart of Africa. The Fortunas over here. Watch Safari Live and connect with nature. Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. You'll also have access to our post-produced content, like a Wild Bush Week. Textbooks tell us that a ratio of 3-to-1 hyenas drive off lionesses. Safari Live Catch-Up.
We have got some doggies that are on the hunt.
And even that sort of cult favourite, The Wild Show. And the little one has made it out and hopefully will rejoin the herd. Wild Earth Explorers. Wilder. Together. We know that adverts pay our bills, but you don't necessarily like them. So, this is a fantastic way to stop being interrupted. Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. 24/7, ad-free, live and on demand. No pesky commercials, no rude interruptions, just wild Africa exactly as it unfolds. Wild Earth Explorers. Wilder together.
and hierarchies cooperate, compete, and they're also very capable of solving quite complicated problems. I think dustbins and rest camps in national parks are quite an example of how ingenious they can be to opening up dustbins or rubbish bins. And then whereas your elephants show quite a different suite of abilities. They've got exceptional long-term memory, sophisticated communication, as you were saying, social learning, problem solving, and then strong responses to other individuals. They can also use tools and have appeared to demonstrate the mirror self-recognition. So I think if you put an elephant and a baboon through the same intelligence test, you might get very different results depending on what you're testing. I think a baboon might perform, for example, an elephant outperform them at particular dexterity or problem solving, while an elephant would probably excel at memory or navigating a complex social situation. So I think it's probably best to say they're both highly intelligent animals, and they've both evolved different kinds of intelligence for different lifestyles at the end of the day. It's well suited to what they need to survive. I must say, it's always such a pleasure to just sit here and peacefully watch the animals going about their daily lives. It's very entertaining. I think especially baboons and monkeys. If you always just stop for a bit and watch them, it's always very entertaining. Also, now I mention that it's interesting to see now the grooming has kind of reversed. The one that was being groomed is now doing the grooming back. So that's a good example of how those social bonds are also strengthened. They, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I'm obviously deeper than that, but it just shows you it's quite a relationship building activity. We are going to move over to another cam. There's a kind of visible line in the Kalahari. I think it's worth having a gander at. Now we'll play the game of oh, there I can see it's on the store. Ooh, that's very exciting. So it's down. Let's move. Apologies for that, guys. We're just struggling with the camera a bit. It's just focusing, and obviously the conditions also make it a bit challenging. But as soon as the line is in view, we'll probably hop back that side. In the interim, we've come back to good old Tau. There's some magnificent bull elephants. I must say that one in the middle is quite a magnificent specimen. Well, I don't think I've seen such a big elephant from Madikwe before. I'm sure he could tell some good stories. He's been around for a couple of years. Some magnificent ivory that he's bearing there. We're going to head over to Serengeti again. Our lion is still proving difficult to capture. At least we have the baboons to entertain us. But still definitely no complaints. We did catch a glimpse of a lion, so that counts. It's always nice to have that on the show. And you always take what the bush can give you. This female's getting in a good scratch. Even sometimes a bit of self-grooming is effective. Quite a flexible pose that's being used there. And off that baboon goes. A bit of a sip of water and some self-care and you're good to go. Also obviously just trying to head to the shade a bit. I can imagine that is quite warm at this point of, or this time of day. You can see every tree or spot of shade appears to have a baboon underneath it or in it, trying to get out of the sun's rays. I think there's many a people that have probably come to Africa in the winter time and thought it's not too hot or they won't get sunburnt, but I can promise you that's quite the opposite. You can still get a good sunburn in winter in Africa. Pedro, so you'd like to know if Chacma baboons look any different when they're on the breeding season. Just to note, there's Chacma baboons and there's also olive baboons. So, but I think we'll just speak broadly about baboons in general. The rules will follow for both of the species and other baboon-like primates. So during the breeding season, you can often see some changes, particularly in the females, mainly in the females. So a female who's in the estrus cycle will develop a swollen and much brighter reddish pink area around the genital region. So then it's a very obvious visual signal to the males that she's in estrus and receptive. So males don't suddenly change color like that, but you'll see behavioral changes. Males become more attentive to receptive females, compete with other males, and will also become more protective or possessive of particular females. But it's worth noting the males don't necessarily go through these breeding cycles as a female would. It's the female that does, and the male's behavior is a result of this. It's not like, I think Impala would be a good example where there's a rutting season. The male baboon will be like that if there is a female in estrus, etc. And they're not all in estrus at the same time. It's different times. There's no specific breeding season for baboons specifically. So yeah, if you're watching a troop, it's kind of easy to recognize, who's following who or what's going on. And also just touching on the fact that there's not really a breeding season for baboons. It stems from the fact that they live in habitats where there's water, so they're not water dependent, not necessarily grazing. They're omnivorous, so they make use of different niches to feed on, whether it be fruit, sometimes meat, insects. They will eat vegetation, but yeah, they're quite adaptive, so they're not so in tune with the rain cycle specifically like your herbivores would be, that need to breed at a certain time of year. Baboons are definitely having a nice peaceful Sunday siesta, if I could call it that. It's also nice to hear a few of the bird calls in the background. That last one's going to haunt me a bit. It sounds very familiar, but obviously also quite a different part of the continent, so I wouldn't expect it to be a bird I'm familiar with. I think it's a type of woodpecker that was calling like that. It sounded like that to me anyway. Very different to the calls we have here in South Africa, but sounds familiar. Quite an impressive male standing here. Don't know if he's necessarily the dominant fellow, but nonetheless still a very large specimen. Very impressive and quite fluffy and imposing with all that hair around his face. It's interesting to note that Chacma baboons, and I'll double check myself, but as far as I know, the baboons in Serengeti, etc., are olive baboons. It's not the same as the Chacma baboons we have here in South Africa, but ours are not as fluffy like that. They look a bit more scraggly for me. I think the Western Cape Chacma baboons look a bit more fluffy for me. I think that's probably an adaptation to the colder weather down there compared to our drier Kruger low-felt conditions, where a fluffy, puffy coat is not going to benefit you. But yeah, they do look quite different. I was quickly doing some reading in one of my guides. That was the other one I was forgetting, was the yellow baboon, one of the other species. Also a few other specially adapted ones like the Hamadryas baboon and the Guinea baboon. But yeah, down in southern Africa all we have is the Chacma baboon. Also hearing that call again, the other bird it could be as a type of shrike, if I actually think carefully about it. Either a woodpecker or a shrike, but yeah, learning bird calls from a new region is always quite entertaining. quite cute seeing this younger baboon grooming this larger one. Okay, and also looks like that larger male we maybe saw now. But it was a bit tough separating the individuals. But yeah, just a good example again of that social hierarchy we often refer to with the baboons. Big guy looks quite chilled there, and happy he's getting a nice back scratch and grooming session. There's a bit of a spot there to get under the arms, and also doing some yoga at the same time. Time for the other arm. Moving a bit also to not neglect the other side. It really gives you an idea how shaggy and fluffy their coat is. See how the wind is blowing his hair a bit, but also as that smaller baboon's kind of moving it around a bit. Quite an impressive coat, if I do say so myself.
Alright then, let me show you what you're missing. Our archive allows you to delve into the past, be it yesterday or many years ago. You can visit characters who've left us.
Doesn't ever get old.
This is, of course, the Little Prince, Hosanna, guides who've moved on to other things.
Tingana's walking right in front of my vehicle.
These guys are the sausage tree pride.
Classic stories and wonderful moments. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together. Are you ready to turn your travel dreams into a reality? Africa is full of exciting adventures and stunning wildlife. This isn't just a journey. It's a once-in-a-lifetime wildlife adventure I'd like to take you on. Join me, James Hendry,
and connect with nature.
Hi there, my name is Kerry Dupree, wildlife presenter and guide. What I love the most about guiding is being able to share my love for wildlife and nature with my guests. Very exciting to find those cheetah boys on a kill. Being passionate about your job makes the world of a difference because your guide definitely sets the tone of every adventure.
Kind of their version of maintaining those friendships. Could also almost in a way say it's a bit of social currency that's being expended or exchanged. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, the grooming does play a role in keeping the fur healthy. But I think for baboons, it's just as much about who you're grooming as what you're removing. I think I hear some elephants in the background there. Baboons don't seem too worried. I say this is quite an impressive specimen of a male. He's definitely in his peak or in his prime. Very large animal. I must say, in a way, this almost looks like a scene from the beaches during vacation time. Everyone just lounging about and soaking up a bit of sun. And I'm sure these baboons are probably going to get a bit hot in the sun. They'll probably move into the shade. It's quite interesting when you see how dexterously they groom themselves, watching this male groom his fingers there. Sometimes see a lot of human-like qualities or things we can relate on. Obviously, humans just do it a bit more hygienically or civilizedly. I think maybe that's the answer or the word, but it's always interesting to see the similarities anyway. Penelope, it's always a pleasure. I hope you enjoy your lunchtime braai. But yeah, thanks to everyone who has joined today. It's been quite a fun session. A lot of cool things to see. Wildlife Lady, also glad you enjoyed the show. Certainly a big thanks to our Zoomies and Mission Control and Africam for that awesome crossing over the Mara. Yeah, and that 99.9% of the wildebeest made it. Unfortunately, that is the way that nature works. The crocodiles do also need to eat. But again, thanks to everyone who joined the show today. I hope it was enjoyable. I hope you have a great week ahead. Enjoy this afternoon's drive. And yeah, it was really nice to be around. I'm sure I'll do another session or two the rest of this month. But yeah, thanks again to everyone for interacting and the interesting questions and comments. It was a wonderful show.